Finding a good book is like going on a hunt for a unicorn, practically impossible. Is drinking wine out of a can ghetto? Oh well. I think I read every good book on my Kindle Unlimited, and now I literally don't know what to do because books are expensive. What's up everyone, I'm Ashley and welcome to another video, and I'll get right to the point. I love books and I love wine and I like to enjoy them at the same time, and that's the only rhyme that I will be doing in today's video. If you're a wine lover like me, stay tuned to the end of the episode where I will be discussing what wine I paired with this June book wrap up. Otherwise, let's get started talking about books because that's what we love. This episode is all about the books I read in June, and I just wanted to share my thoughts about each book with you. I said I wasn't gonna rhyme and I just did, sorry. There's 7. I definitely read way more than that, but they just didn't make the cut for this video. They weren't good enough, and I'm actually pretty picky. I'm gonna rate them on a star level, 1 through 5 stars, about what I think. And you know what? I realize I don't hardly ever give out 5 stars. 5 stars is like finding a unicorn. So the day that happens, well, it will be a shocker. The first book that I want to talk about this month is She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. And this is an Oprah book club read, so it carries a lot of clout. It's definitely a dark coming of age story about a young girl named Dolores Price, and it follows her all the way from childhood into adulthood. It starts out with her, like I said, at a young age, and without the lack of parental guidance that most kids her age would have. Her father and mother divorce, her father leaves and kind of is never part of her life. Her mother has a lot of mental issues. I mean, you can guess the tragic trajectory that this story is going. When she's a teenager, she experiences this horrific sexual assault that is discussed in the book. So if you don't like graphic things of that nature, I would avoid it. She heads off to college, and at this point, she has handled all the tragic things in her life by eating excessively. She weighs, I think, at one point, 260 pounds. When she gets to college, it just reaches a tipping point. She actually ends up having to go to a mental asylum. I struggled with this book a lot. One minute, I loved it, and the next minute, I hated it, like really hated it. I feel like I changed my opinion about this, like, literally almost hourly or daily. I think the thing that I had the biggest problem with is the whale. I said it. The whale. I had such a big problem with this in the book. Basically, Dolores Price, she has this bonding moment with a dead whale. Yes, I'm not making this up. I found it it just rubbed me the wrong way. The metaphor of an overweight girl with a whale that was dead, and somehow she's having this deep, meaningful connection with the dead whale. And I didn't like that. It really bugged me. And then I think what took it to another level is the author of the book is a male, and the entire book is told from for the most part, a young girl's perspective. And I'm just like, what does some old man know about a young girl's perspective? Also, Dolores goes through way too many awful heartbreaks, horrible things, and I know some people's lives are like that, but I think it just felt emotionally exhausting reading the book. I just wanted her to catch a break, and I felt like even the ending didn't bring relief, and I found that to just bother me. And now I want to talk about the things I did like about this book. This book is extremely well written. OMG. This guy can write. Maybe I didn't always like what he wrote about, but his writing style is so prolific. It's worth reading the book just to read the way that he writes. Yes, it is a man writing about a girl's perspective, but I did notice when I was reading about a lot of people's opinions on this book, that they all were astounded that the book was written by a man, told in a woman's voice, because if they hadn't known that, they would have thought it was a woman. And so that just speaks to the fact that this dude can write. There are a ton of people that love this book, and there are a ton of people that hate this book. It seems to be very, very 50-50. So this book for me is 2.5. Just because of my opinion, don't not give it a try, because you might actually really enjoy it. The next book that I want to share with you is Athena's Child by Hannah Lynn. I feel a little bit like Wheel of Fortune. Anyways, Athena's Child by Hannah Lynn. This is a retelling of the Greek myth of Medusa. I am guessing, like me, when you think of the story of Medusa, you think about an evil, monstrous woman with a head full of snakes, and she's scary and awful. And then there's Perseus, the hero, who comes to the rescue of the world and slaughters her and brings her head back home. In this retelling of the story of Medusa, we get to meet her when she's young and stunningly beautiful, and it's just a take that I've never even thought about. Most people haven't thought about a beautiful Medusa, but it is accurate to Greek mythology. In fact, she was so gorgeous, her parents actually sent her to the temple of Athena to basically hide away her beauty, because there were so many men that wanted her. They wanted to ravish her, marry her, take her away, and she didn't want that. So she went to the temple of Athena to be protected. But in reality, the opposite happened. Poseidon, like many Greek gods in mythology and like many men in real life, lusts after the beautiful Medusa, and he just can't keep his hands off of her. And so he decides to have his way with her without her permission. I'll let you fill in the blank. In the temple of Athena, Athena does nothing. In fact, she accuses Medusa of seducing Poseidon, which is not true, and then curses her with a head full of snakes and eyes that turn men to stone. She flees to an island in the middle of nowhere in hopes that her gaze and her head full of snakes will not end the lives of people, but instead the opposite happens. She becomes sort of this destiny for heroes to travel to in hopes that they can kill the evil, monstrous Medusa. And the demigod Perseus decides to travel to the island in hopes that he can bring back the head of Medusa and solidify his name in history as the one who murdered her. So to sum it up, I love this book, Athena's Child. I think that Hannah Lynn breathes so much life into the story, a story that we've all sort of put aside and no one has really struck out to retell it, and especially from this perspective. The writing style in this book is stunningly beautiful, but elegantly simple. It's a super short read. If you're looking for a short read, this is a great one. And even though it's tragic, there's a tale of redemption that is so beautiful. It's really worth a read. I love this book and I want to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I want to talk about is These Tangled Vines by Juliana McLean. The main character in this book is Fiona Bell, and she spends a big part of her life taking care of her father, who is a quadriplegic. The big surprise that happens to Fiona is that her mother, on her deathbed, confesses that she had a secret affair in Italy many years prior, and that Fiona's father is actually not her true biological father, but in fact, her real father is living in Italy. And of course, it's quite a shock to Fiona, but she kind of pushes it to the wayside because, she didn't grow up knowing him. Fast forward a few years and Fiona gets a call from Italy, and she finds out that her real father has passed away and he's named her in the will. She must go there to find out what she has inherited. Needless to say, his other children are not so stoked about the fact that there is a half-sister they never knew and that she might take away his fortune because he turns out to be, well, basically a bajillionaire. What I liked about this book was the descriptions of the vineyard because, hello, I like wine. And, well, who wouldn't want to inherit some millions of dollars in a villa? What I didn't like was, well, it's a little fluffy and cheesy and super unrealistic, and I'm not really into that, but a lot of people are. So if you are, I really recommend this. And you know what? I wanted to escape too after reading She's Come Undone and Athena's Child, so I kind of liked it a little bit sometimes too. The next book that I want to talk about is a New York Times bestseller, A House in the Sky by Amanda Lynn Howe and Sarah Corbett. And this book is literally unputdownable. A House in the Sky is a true story about a young Canadian girl named Amanda Lynn Howe, who has a thirst for travel from a young age. She is obsessed with reading National Geographic magazines. She wants to go to every country that she possibly can. The more remote, the better, the more dangerous, the more exciting. She waitresses in her spare time and saves up a bunch of money to travel to all of these countries. She sort of flirts with danger, and this addiction to wanderlust gets her into a lot of trouble when she heads to Somalia with her friend Nigel. They are actually taken hostage. Her captors are trying to get ransom money from her family, and they're trying to get ransom money from her friend Nigel's family. Most families don't have $2-3 million just laying in the bank to give away, and yet it's their child that we're talking about, and so it's this cat and mouse game going back and forth, and it's really scary. It's scary to read because it's true. It happened to real people, and it happened not that long ago. This one is really brutal to read because there's multiple instances of rape and torture and starvation, and what this woman went through is so horrific. Because I'm kind of a fraidy cat, and I don't like scary things. I don't like scary books. I don't like scary movies. The fact that this is based on a true story makes it even more creepy, and it was really sad, and I hate reading about sexual assault and all of that. And the only reason I could get through this book was there was always an element of hope and inspiration and tenaciousness that Amanda brought through in her writing. It's a story about hope in the darkest of times, and I am so enthralled of this woman that she could be in this horrific experience and come through like she did. It's a beautiful book, and I want to give this a 4.5 star rating. The only thing I would say my criticism could be is the graphicness of this book, yet I feel like it was necessary because that's what made you have to share what happened to you in order to make the story come to life, and it was all true, and that's what it took to tell this story. So yeah. Do You Mind If I Cancel by Gary Janetti is the next book I want to talk about. This is a simple collection of essays. They are irreverent, snarky, funny for the most part, but will have you have a few leaky tears if you feel so inclined. I would warn you that if you're not into the 80s, gay men in the 80s, Patti LuPone, the evolution of the cell phone and the internet, and just travel adventures, then I wouldn't advise this for you. But if that sounds like your cup of tea, this is a bag of laughs. I liked it, but I'm a little weird, so who knows. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 stars because I laughed a lot. What can I say? The next book we are talking about is The Forgotten Kingdom by Signe Pike. This is book 2 in the Lost Queen trilogy. I don't want to give away the plot of the second book if you haven't read the first one. So the trilogy in a nutshell is about the long lost and forgotten queen of 6th century Scotland, the twin sister of Merlin, or the man who inspired the tale of Merlin. Signy Pike, the author of the series, has done a copious amount of research. You learn so much about historical Scotland in the 6th century, which I don't know if you could find from almost anyone else. What's so compelling about this book and the entire trilogy in itself is that it takes place in a time when magic was real, and if not real, it was thought to be so. And she tells that side of the story that is so often forgotten. And, you know, it was their religion, seeing it brought to life in her novels about legendary warriors and heroic queens and the man who would be Merlin. I love this series so far. I can't wait for the 3rd one. Don't know what's gonna happen, but stay tuned for another episode about this series. I want to give Signy Pike's A Forgotten Kingdom / The Lost Queen trilogy 4 stars out of 5 because I want to just give a bow down moment to all of the research and passion that she's put into this project, and I just love that she's bringing this magical tale come to life. So 4 out of 5 stars for you. It's the last book. Let's get her done. The last book in the June book wrap-up is The Songbook of Benny Lamont, written by Amy Harmon. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because I also am doing a book review on this book because it was so dang good and I loved it. And I just think it's so perfect for the time that we're in right now. It's all about Benny Lamont, a singer-songwriter in the 1960s, and how he falls in love with Esther Mine, who is a singer that he sees for the first time in his local club. His dad, who's part of the mob, takes him there. He sees her, he has to write a hit song for her, and it catapults her to fame. What they're both not prepared for is just like the spotlight that is shown on them and like all of the past years of racism and like what it means to the music industry and basically how it affects them. I really loved the message that this book gave. It's a really, really incredibly powerful story, and I can't wait to talk more about it in the future. So on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, I give this 4 stars, and if you want to learn more, stay tuned for that future episode. For our June wrap-up, I chose the 14 Hands Unicorn Rosé Bubbles because, well, like I said, finding a good book is kind of like finding a unicorn. And the label is just adorable. Who doesn't love a unicorn? Who doesn't love polka dots? Who doesn't like wine in a can? It whispered sweet unicorn things to me. It's bubbly. A little bit bubbly, but not like champagne bubbly. It still had a good flavor. It wasn't disgustingly sweet. It was good enough for me to finish it. If you love sweet wines, you will like this. It is a little bit effervescent. It's definitely red, fruity flavors and kind of like candy in a can. I forgot to mention that this unicorn rosé bubbly pairs well with pool parties. Most of us don't have pools, but if we do, pairs very well. So that's it. 14 Hands Unicorn, limited release. Check it out. Check it out now. Funk Soul Brother right about now. All right. That is it, my friends. Leave me a little comment. Definitely leave me a love tap on the like button and subscribe if you haven't. And if you haven't, why not? Or maybe I should say, wine not? Because it means the world to me. Thank you for listening to me prattle on and on. I will see you in the next episode of Well Read. a love tap light button. Blah, blah, blah. I know how to spell poignant, I just can't say it. Poignant? Poignant. Poignant? Poignant. Yeah, whatever. Travels from Canada. No, don't. Fiona doesn't get a call from her father, that would be from a coffin. Why is this so hard?